MSNBC and the Washington Post will co-host the 5th Democratic presidential primary debate. That's in Georgia next month. NBC senior political editor Mark Murray is here with us now to break down what some of the latest poll numbers tell us about what we could expect on the debate stage. And Mark, we see some very interesting things happening with Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren.
I actually think you ended up hitting who could be the two big headliners at our next debate in November, as well as even the one that we're going to see in Ohio next week, and that is Elizabeth Warren becoming the front runner or co-front runner in the field with Joe Biden. There's a real clear politics average that now has Elizabeth Warren narrowly ahead of Joe Biden on the average of polls, although I would, with the caveat that these always change with what the latest polls are, but it's clear that we have two co-front runners, and this would be new. And actually, it increases the scrutiny on Elizabeth Warren. In the past debates, Joe Biden has always been the person at the center of attention. And come next week, and then in our debate in November, I do think that Elizabeth Warren will be the one who might be getting some of the tough questions and tough back and forths.
Mark, we know the lineup for next week's debate is already locked in. 12 candidates will take the stage. Can we expect to see fewer in our debate next month? What's the criteria to qualify? Who's made the cut? What do we know?
Yeah, I think we will end up having a smaller field, and the reason being just the ramped up criteria on the polling front. It used to be you need to hit 2% in 4 qualifying polls. That's now going up to 3%. Also, if you're able to hit 5% or more in 2 of the early state polls, you can qualify as well. We now have 8 Democrats who have qualified for this. Some of the people who are on the outside looking in and hoping to be able to qualify in the next few weeks, people like Beto O'Rourke, Julian Castro, Amy Klobuchar have not qualified yet. And so right now it does look at the situation. We're going to go from 12 to 8, and with those other Democrats trying to increase that to maybe 9 or 10.
We know there are 2 different situations here, making the cut and dropping out. Do you think we'll see anybody drop out before then?
You know, I always do end up looking at the fundraising quarters that end up coming up. We end up having, you have to file with the Federal Election Commission on October 15th. If you are a candidate who has not even qualified for any of the most recent debates, you have a pretty poor fundraising quarter, you might end up deciding to pull the plug. We ended up seeing that from Eric Swalwell before the last fundraising quarter. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a dropout. But it is interesting to me that there are still several candidates and campaigns that are trucking along, even though they haven't qualified for any of the recent debates. I'm talking about Montana Governor Steve Bullock, Colorado Senator Michael Bennet, have not pulled the plugs yet, keep on campaigning, even though they aren't anywhere close to being in a debate.
Mark, every day we throw a ton of numbers at people, whether it's polling figures, fundraising numbers. It's got to confuse people a little bit, or at least make them wonder what really matters. At this point in the race, what do you think is the best indicator for who will ultimately get the Democratic nomination? Should people be looking at polls over fundraising? What is the number that matters the most?
Yeah, my answer is all the above, but also all of the above when we're about 3 weeks out before the Iowa caucuses. And the reason I end up saying that is that he or she who's the front runner at this stage in October before Iowa, maybe November, December, usually doesn't end up getting the nomination. I'm talking about Rudy Giuliani, the Republican front runner in 2008, Hillary Clinton, the Democratic front runner in 2008 as well. Newt Gingrich was at one point the front runner in the Republican field in 2012. And so sometimes you are the front runner throughout. Hillary Clinton got the nomination. Donald Trump was the front runner at this time in 2016. But a lot of times the people who we are talking about who are the front runners now, or maybe co-front runners, is the case with Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, sometimes they don't end up getting the nomination. And so we just have to keep on getting closer and closer to the Iowa caucuses when things will get a whole lot more clarifying.
Yeah, the cliche holds true here. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? I'd love to turn our attention, if you wouldn't mind, now to a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll that talks about how Americans are feeling about President Trump and the impeachment fight. Can you talk about what's going on there and sort of how people feel and how it's divided up along party lines?
Yeah, I have one number for you that I think is going to be really instructive, and that's 53%. Came up a lot in our poll. The 53% of the people who disapprove of President Trump's job rating, 53% view the president in unfavorable light, 53% end up seeing that the president hasn't been honest and trustworthy when it comes to this Ukraine situation. And then you end up looking, all the impeachment numbers that we have kind of border between 51 and 55%. And to me, when you look at all those numbers in totality, totality, it shows that a solid majority of the country is against the president, not only as he begins this impeachment battle, but also looks ahead to re-election a year from now.
Mark Murray in D.C., thank you so much for running through all those topics and, of course, all those numbers. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.